Revolutionary fighters have mounted an assault on Muammar Gaddafi's hometown of Sirte. It's one of 3 areas in the country still believed to be under his control. And forces loyal to the country's interim leaders have been meeting fierce resistance. They've been pushed towards the town from the east and the west. Some heavy fighting has already taken place on the outskirts as thousands of revolutionary fighters gather to take on one of Gaddafi's last remaining strongholds. Well, we've got Aljazeera's Hoda Abdelhamid, who is joining us now live from Gandil, around 90 kilometers from Sirte. Hoda, certainly the revolutionary fighters facing some fierce resistance in Sirte, because this is not just a small town that they can storm their way into. Just bring us up to speed with the latest, as far as what's happening there.
Well, they're facing fierce resistance not only from the west, but also here from the east. Now, the latest information we have, and we have actually heard a moment ago a few thumps in the background, is that at the moment both sides are digging their heels around a town called Harawa. That's a town that that was part of the tribal negotiations. They tried to convince the people there to surrender peacefully. That did not happen. The fighters have not been able to go into that town yet. The fighting is more or less around this red valley, which is right before the town, and it's a sort of natural buffer zone. Now, on the western side, we understand that they did try to get in. They didn't get right to the city center. They went up to a bridge, and then they had to retreat because they came under fierce retaliation. Now, we did ask the fighters here in the east if they knew about what was going to happen in the west. They did not know. They said that they didn't have any orders to go further of where they are at the moment.
Now, we heard Colonel Gaddafi spokesman Musa Ibrahim say, Hoda, that there were thousands of volunteers ready to liberate Libya from the NTC. Do the revolutionary fighters that you've been speaking to, do they have any idea of who they're up against, how well trained and armed they are in Sirte?
Well, we've heard always the former government say that there were thousands of fighters waiting, whether it was in Tripoli or it was in Zliten and now in Sirte. Now, what the fighters here do think, however, is that the battle for Sirte will be very difficult, because traditionally, well before all this started, Sirte was already a sort of fortified city. That's where the base of the paramilitary elite forces are, the famous Khamis Brigade, named after the son of Colonel Gaddafi. So they do expect to have a very difficult fight. They also say that that's one city where Gaddafi does have popular support and does have people who are willing to fight. One of the fighters was telling me that once in a while they managed to get into radio conversations with the other side, and they asked the other side, why are you fighting? The answer was, we will do everything and we will die for Gaddafi. So certainly that gives you an indication that if there's one place where Gaddafi can count on some sort of popular support, it is indeed Sirte.
Okay, thank you very much, Hoda Abdelhamid, reporting there on the latest for the battle for Sirte. Meanwhile, Turkey's Prime Minister Recep Tayyip Erdogan is shortly due to become the latest world leader to visit the country's interim rulers. Anita McNaught is live in Tripoli for us. Anita, what sort of reception is he likely to get in Tripoli?
Well, it's a fair bet that he'll get the sort of reception that he got in Tunisia, where he's coming from, and in Egypt, where he was before, and that is fairly rapturous. That is the kind of reception that the Turkish Prime Minister is used to getting from the Arab world these days, not just because of the stance that Turkey has taken, the very helpful stance in solidarity, and certainly in recent months that Turkey has taken in Libya, but also, of course, because of its stance on the Israel-Palestine question, which is what has put the Turkish Prime Minister very much into the heart of people in the Middle East here. But he's expected to come to where I am today, Martyrs Square, where he will do something that the 2 previous statesmen to come here, David Cameron of Britain, Nicolas Sarkozy of France, could not do. And that is pray with Libyans in Martyrs Square for Friday prayers. Very much the sort of populist gesture, but a deeply felt one, I have to say. That's not in any sense to belittle what he's doing, quite the contrary, that we would expect from the Turkish Prime Minister.
And how important, Anita, are these visits, whether it's Nicolas Sarkozy, David Cameron, Recep Tayyip Erdogan? How important is it for the NTC? Does it help them gain more legitimacy in the eyes of the Libyan people?
Well, they're absolutely a legitimizing visit. Of course they are. When these statesmen come here, when these leaders come here, it says that Libya is a safer, more stable place, and it makes the NTC feel itself more legitimized by it. But there are mutual interests here at play, and we must be very clear about that. Turkey had a 30-year relationship with Colonel Gaddafi's regime. Many Turkish business people got extremely wealthy from the contracts that Libya gave them. Libya's current Turkey's current exposure in Libya is some $15 billion in unfinished contracts here. And the Turkish Prime Minister is bringing with him a delegation of business people, some of whom almost inevitably will be those who had business going here that was stopped by the civil war, by the uprising, and they'll want to be seeing what has happened to their projects, what assurances the NTC is being able to give them that they'll be able to pick up where they left off, what the scope for compensation might be. There's been some discussion here about what insurance will cover and what it won't. And of course, Turkey very, very much wants to be a part of the rebuilding of Libya, not just because it's worth a huge amount to Turkey economically, but because Turkey morally, culturally, this used to be a part of the Ottoman Empire, let's not forget. Turkey feels that it has a role to play here, and Libyans now, after a while when Turkey sat on the fence, not quite sure which way it should go in the early stages of the uprising, has been 150% behind the NTC, has been very generous, very constructive, and it wants to build on that in its relationship with Libya as it goes forward.
Okay, thank you very much, Anita McNaught, live for us in Tripoli.